Hello, and welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Travel and lifestyle writer Deborah Stone is back on Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station show to tell us all about her recent and luxurious barge cruise adventure in Holland with European-Waterways. They're the largest barging company in Europe. Now, you know, who thought about going on a barge? Floating on a barge.
Yeah, it sounds to me like there'd be cattle on there.
I know, but this apparent luxury, and it's like a barge party.
Okay, clean cattle.
I know. She started off in Amsterdam and ended in Delft, and she got to go hang out. You know, that was the home port of the Dutch East India Company, which goes back, Nancy and I, to our history of living in Cape Town and South Africa, being a hub of the Dutch East India Company, and that beautiful porcelain and just ceramics. So everybody, Debbie is one of our regular contributors here on Big Blend Radio and in our two different magazines, Big Blend Radio and TV Magazine and Parks and Travel Magazine. If you go to blendradioandtv.com, you'll see her in our expert department and with links to her articles and interviews. And this article that she's written about her European-Waterways barge cruise is on blendradioandtv.com, so you can see it now, and it will be featured in the July-August issue of Big Blend Radio and TV Magazine. But while we chat with her, go check out the website for european-waterways.com. It's beautiful. Welcome back, Debbie. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Hi, ladies. How are you?
We're good. We're excited because I remember the very first time you came on the show with us, you went on this wonderful cruise to the Sea of Cortez. Remember that? And you were all into this little ship, right? It's not your big, giant, cruise thing. And it was this historic boat ship going in a boat ship, but it was restored and it was like this unique thing. And you were talking about how you were drinking wine and watching birds and chatting with there's so few people on this experience, and you all became friends. And the food was amazing, and the wildlife, and now here you are on a barge. And I never thought we'd be talking to you about that, but it's kind of the same thing in that they're not just tossing the barges off to sea, they're keeping them restored.
Yeah, that's the wonderful thing I think about these barges. The company has really, taken these older barges, and they have, refurbished them, and they're now very upscale. They're larger, luxury barging is really, and it's also something that's become, I think, extremely popular now in Europe because people are interested in going down these small little rivers and these canals, places that the big boats can't get to, the larger river cruises can't get to. And it's a way for them of really seeing a slice of life as they go along, because you go so very slowly that you could, possibly at times even jump off and walk alongside the boat in places. But it's one of those things where I think people feel like it's a much more targeted and intimate experience in a particular destination versus, kind of going down one of the larger, big rivers and really not getting to see, the little stuff, which I think is so important because you really get an idea of what life is like in a particular place. When you're looking at people who are actually going about their lives and day to day, and you can even look at their houses and the houseboats along the way, and then the little bridges and it's just, and the people who are waiting as the bridges open and close and the locks open and close, and the people who are cycling, because this is a nation of cyclists. And so to me, it was a really delicious way of seeing this part of the world.
I love that, the cycling, because, Europe is, cycle or walk, it's compared to, America in SUVs everywhere. No, not putting the SUV down, but I think that
we have a long distance.
Well, we're getting better. I mean, our city here in Tucson, we just completed the loop where it connects 131 miles of terrain for cyclists and walkers, which is pretty amazing.
That's wonderful. That's really impressive.
It is. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And, all this time, Nancy and I have actually done portions of it, and we didn't realize, but it also links some heritage corridors and goes through downtowns. And then you're walking along a wash and looking at bunnies and wildflowers. It's really, really cool. And I do see America progress in the cycling part. But I think when you go to a place like, Amsterdam, and you're going to start seeing people on bicycles and think, why don't we do a little bit more of that in our country? Did you feel that at all when you were there?
Well, everybody has bicycles. In fact, we were, talking to several Dutch people, and they're like, oh yeah, each person probably has, at least 2, maybe 3,
wow.
bikes. And you see business people, businessmen and women, riding their bikes to work with their, backpacks and briefcases and all that kind of stuff. And then you see the school kids, going to school, back and forth from school. And then you see, whether it's women, housewives, whatever, mothers taking children places, and everybody cycles there, everybody. And it's, and of course we know that the country is flat, which is of course perfect for cycling, and so you're not doing Tour de France type of hill climbs. So it really makes it very easy for everyone to do. I think as a person who is a visitor who goes to Holland, and particularly in a city like Amsterdam, which is busy and bustling, you need to be extremely careful of the bicyclists, because they are everywhere, and it's something that we're not used to paying that much attention to, because it's not as prolific here, at least not in sometimes huge or bigger urban centers. And so as we're walking along in Amsterdam, it's almost like, you don't look for the cars, you're looking for the cyclists, because they're going from either direction. And in Amsterdam, they will tell you, the cyclist is always right. And so, if the cyclist in the car get into it for some reason, the cyclist is going to win out in there. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just the way it is. And
wow.
But it is
like
wonderful.
Mexico, people are first. Like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, if it's a jaywalker or whatever, it doesn't matter. They win. But I actually have a friend who was over there, and I mean, she almost got herself run off. Like she was like, like this is, it's like the Autobahn of cycling.
You have to be just, extremely cautious, and just realize that the bicycle is used more than the car. I mean, they've got great public transportation, trams and all sorts of buses and things, but it's the bicycle that really, takes star seating there in terms of mode of transportation. What's interesting is when you are in Amsterdam, and we took a walking tour, which was a great introduction to just the country and to the city and history and everything. But we always call it Holland. Everybody calls it Holland. And it's very interesting because, the true name is Netherlands, and Holland is just, one of there are actually just 2 provinces. They have 13 Dutch provinces, and Holland is actually only 2 of them. And so, but people all over the world usually refer to the country as Holland, and not as much to the Netherlands, which I found it very interesting, because I although I probably knew that in the back of my mind, I still refer to it as Holland.
That is interesting. I do the same thing. And then, I read your article, I'm like, okay, now wait a minute.
Now that's weird, because I always refer to it as the Netherlands. And and
well, you're younger.
but I mean, I was raised in a different country, and so that's what I learned in South Africa, going through high school and everything. It was the Netherlands, and it's interesting because when our friends came over, they were like, "No, we're in Holland." I'm like, "What do you mean you're in Holland?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're just outside. They're like, "Well, really not far from Amsterdam. It's like a few a few steps." But it's really interesting to me, the story that you came back with, because it wasn't like you were on the barge for that long. I mean, you were, and you said you had a floating party. Now, to me, there's nothing better than that. There's no, you can sit and have, did you just sit and sip wine and eat food and watch as you, I mean,
you can do you can do any of the above. You can sit indoors, you can sit up on the deck, you can sit in the hot tub, you can, be standing, you can go where the pilot is and watch how he, maneuvers and drives the barge. it's really one of those things where it's just a wonderfully comfortable, intimate house party type of atmosphere where the pace is so leisurely and gentle and you don't feel rushed. And yet you really see so much in a relatively, we were on it for, a week. And it's like you see so much in that time. And yet I think your experience is much more immersive in this type of style of traveling, in my mind.
That's interesting because, there's that, we all know, especially travel writers, when you go on a media trip, it's like, here's 20 things in one day. Now, do you remember it all at the end of the day? It's like, yeah, we do, but it's like, woo, woo, woo. And to be able to really soak up a region, I think is really important. And of course, coming in, on water, that's something that's really always that's the crux of history. Everything happened because of water. And
exactly. And especially with the Netherlands,
Right. Yeah, that's so cool. And so when you were there, when you get off the barge, did they plan the excursions for you? And did you get on a bicycle?
You can do, actually, first of all, you can do whatever you want, but they do have, an excursion, or they always do like a walking tour of the town. And it's always, it's always guided by the crew captain, or you want to call it their, kind of like, manager, the whole barge manager. And he was very knowledgeable, and he would take us around, and those who wanted to do that could do it. And most people participated in wanting to learn about it. And it wasn't like hours and hours of time. It was, very much, we went and hit some of the major sites of the town. And then it was pretty much, you're free to do, whatever you want to explore in depth. If you wanted to go back and see a museum more in depth, or if you wanted to, go sit in an outdoor cafe and watch the world go by, that was perfectly fine, And so it gave you a really nice, I think, latitude in terms of being able to explore on your own. But if you wanted to take advantage of what was offered to you, which most people did, whether it was a walking tour or, for example, a private tour of the Royal Delft factory, or whether it was, going to visit Keukenhof, the gardens, or, going to the Alsmeer, to the flower auction, the Floral Holland Alsmeer, excuse me, let me get that right. You could take part in whatever. So everything was pretty much up to you. And as the manager, as our crew manager had said, and captain said, this is your cruise, and you are, free to do. You will not hurt my feelings if you don't go walking with me, or anything like that. So cool. It really was nice. And what was also nice is, you weren't getting off at a port and hopping onto a bus and going somewhere. It was you get off and you walk. Or if people wanted to get off and bike, whatever they wanted to do, but it was, usually on your own power of your own body, so to speak.
Nice.
I want a tricycle.
Nancy gets a tricycle, and I'll do a rickshaw, and I'll cart you around in a rickshaw. I don't even, but no, I think this is so. You went in spring, and to me, looking at the photos and the windmills and the tulips, it's like, it's like jaw drop.
Pretty.
There's something about that. It's just
amazing,
incredible that you saw that. But I did not know all of the history of tulips. And Nancy and I we were talking about this. Turkey is where their origins.
They came from, what was then Constantinople, which is basically Turkey today. So they came from kind of the Asian influence of that part of the world, and they just became a huge hot commodity. The Dutch were obsessed with them, and the bulbs became these just highly sought after acquisitions, and people would pay so much money for them, especially these rare, the rarer bulbs, the rarer tulips. And so, there was an actual time in history, the tulip mania time in the country, when, they said that one bulb was equivalent to the price of a really nice house in Amsterdam. And it was just outrageous. People, bartering, bargaining, bidding, doing all that to get these bulbs. And then it just became this kind of quintessentially Dutch product, and everybody kind of I don't know, it's synonymous with the country in my mind. When you think of, when you think of the Netherlands, you think of that, you just think of tulips. And so they are so important to that country, and people will come in spring. The month of April is the month when the tulips are blooming, and you can see this at this, you can see the fields in places, but at Keukenhof Gardens, which is one of the most incredible places, and they call it the Garden of Europe. It's, there's 100 acres, and there's over 7 million bulbs that are flowering. Now, they're not all tulips, but many of them are, but it's just this incredible feast for the senses. You know what I mean?
Bulbs are incredible plants.
I know. It's like, that's what we say when we're going to retire. Nancy's going to do bulbs and I'm going to have goats. And, I don't know what it is.
Two shall meet.
I don't know, but,
yeah, don't let the goats see the bulbs.
Your goats stay out of my bulb.
Yeah, but I want goat cheese. But no, the bulbs, I have a thing about this. I watched a documentary and I got so into the Royal Flora Holland Aalsmeer, which is that huge, pretty much.
Oh, my God.
And then we saw another documentary about, and we covered it, about the history of flight. And, because people take airplanes and air travel for granted sometimes, and we get mad at TSA and things like that. But the reality is, it is an incredible invention that takes us around the world, and it takes you to Holland,
Right.
And this was one of the major examples in this documentary too, was, this amazing thing about how cut flowers get around the world to florists. Right. I mean, it's I know there's a localized movement too, but at the same time, I mean, this is incredible. Did you get to go in the building and see that?
Yes, we did, and it's like having 100 Costco's. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like you can't even imagine what the size of this place is. And then there's these people, and they're on these like almost like little, not segways, but they're on this like little carts, and they're zooming around, and they're like, nobody ever gets hit, and nobody has the access. It looks like they're like in this incredible choreographed dance, and they're like, taking all the flowers, from the trucks and bringing them here and bringing them there and doing this, and you're just watching these people whizzing around in this huge platform, this huge place, this humongous place, which, as they say, is about the size of 220 European football, or what we say soccer fields, and several thousand employees. And then you go and you're walking around and you're touring this place, and then you see where the trading room, the auction room is, and it looks like the New York Stock Exchange. There are people sitting at these their computers, and they've got their phones, and they've got these charts and things up in front, and these you're looking and you're like, oh my gosh, this is big business,
I know, and how they get it out.
I know,
and you think about how this plant. I mean, having to know when to cut the plant, how to get it. It goes there, and then it gets sorted and taken out. I mean, it's amazing to me how this happens. It's like Amazon ain't got nothing on it.
It's insane. It really,
I don't know about that.
It is really insane. And what also is really mind blowing is when you see, they're being traded for like pennies to the dollar, and you think to yourself, how much flowers, when we buy flowers, how much they cost, and it's like, oh my gosh, the markup is insane. It really is.
But you've got to see, because it has to go from the person who grows it,
all the
and
way.
then there's a person, they grow it, they cut it, it goes from that place to Holland, then from Holland to another. I mean, it could end up back in the same country, because this is this big distribution center. And it's like, this is, I mean, between the tulips and also the Royal Flora Holland Aalsmeer, this to me is like some serious flower power. Was it the tulips that started that whole thing? Was it that they needed to get their tulips out to the world because it's like one of the prime cut flowers?
They used the tulips, you said in the article, because they were trying to cover up bad smells.
Yeah, well, back when.
Back in the day.
Back in the day when.
Everybody.
Right. We didn't take, we didn't take our daily showers and our, baths or whatever it was. And, people did not bathe. And so it was, to keep all of that, the bad smells at bay. And so, I think they just became, they loved it, and they loved and they became, I think, obsessed also, the colors and the different, there's like so many hundreds of different types of tulips, and, just that, having that kind of bandwidth with the flower.
You can even grow black flowers. And I mean, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. And I don't know if that's really natural or it's a hybrid.
But you can do that with bulbs. It's so fascinating, like daylilies and how you can do it.
You can have bearded tulips and
it's all the hybrids and the different things. Yeah, exactly. But it is huge. It is a huge business, and it is, just to get a tiny glimpse like I did is just, you're like, oh my.
Wow. Yeah. This is, I geek out on it, and I just find it so fascinating. The bulbs are interesting, and to me, this is so cool, because also when you go in spring, even in your photos, the color, how they light up, when everything, the trees are starting to slowly get their leaves back, and so you can still see the remnants of winter, but then all the color just goes, I'm here to party. Here I am. It's, so off.
And I think too, flowers in general, but tulips. I mean, people were walking around the Keukenhof Gardens with just big smiles on their faces, and it was just,
that's the power of plants, man.
Yeah, it is, and it's just, people are just smelling, and they're feasting their eyes on these incredible displays, and everybody is so happy, and it's just, it was just a true delight to be in a place like that, But of course, we know that there is more to the Netherlands or Holland than tulips, but tulips are very, very important, especially to many visitors who come particularly during the springtime for that display, But you can I think there's a lot of history in the Netherlands.
Art.
There's a lot of art, science. There's enormous contributions that have come out of the country, and as you go to these smaller towns, you can in depth get a dose of that history, and whether it's the World War II history, whether it's back in the days of the trading in the East India Company, as you were mentioning, and or whether it's the Dutch masters, which we know many of them. I mean, they're amazing.
Rembrandt, one of my favorites.
Rembrandt, in Amsterdam, the Rijksmuseum, or the Van Gogh, or as they say, the Van Gogh Museum. And it's like, you're just amazed at the output that is in the arts and the sciences. And so, if you're interested in art, it is a place for those Dutch masters. You can see art in many of the towns.
A lot of the Dutch artists painted flowers over and over and over again, and they put bugs on them, which I really like. They put bugs on them.
But weren't they part of the whole movement of still life movement? Didn't they start the still life movement, or is that French?
I'm not sure.
That I don't know.
I have to get Victoria on the show for that.
But I know that the Dutch really started painting lots of different flowers, and they got very realistic in their paintings and very detailed, and they started putting bugs on them, which I thought that was cool, man. It's like, here's this beautiful tulip. Oh, look, there's
with a bug on it.
We're going to be doing a thing about that with artist Victoria Chick. She always comes on shows and teaches us art history, but it's it's fun. She's going to talk about 19th century art, but like she always goes back, and I didn't realize the bugs. They used to even put bugs on food in paintings, And anyway, let's talk about cheese, because that's the other thing. The cheese. That's okay. There's two things: cheese and clogs. Okay.
Cheese.
You have a photo of clogs hanging on the side of someone's house. That's one of my favorite photos. And I wouldn't have known they were hanging on the side of the house if you didn't tell me. I was like,
there's that photo was taken at that wonderful, I almost call it like a Williamsburg on a smaller scale, but that Zans Schans. It's an open air conservation place and a museum that gives you, just like Williamsburg, it gives you like kind of a insight into a way of life that was, back when. In this case, it's the Dutch way of life in the 17th, 18th century. But first of all, it's wonderful area with all these beautiful wooden windmills that you can go inside and tour, and some of them are doing, producing spices, they're producing paints, they're producing oils, or they're cutting wood, whatever it is. And in this very traditional style. And then, there's all these little places you can walk in, whether it's the pewter factory or the cheese farm or the clog workshop, the cacao lab, the weaver's house. And, the artisans are dressed in the period costumes and they explain to you how things were done. And I love that too. And so those clogs were on one of those, on one of the houses, and they were really artfully displayed, and they also were weathered, and I just loved the way they looked, but we went into a clog workshop, where they're explaining the wooden clog and they were explaining how to make it, and and then of course there's a billion clogs for you to buy, and if you want to, and that is like the number one souvenir from that country, I think. Everybody wants their wooden clogs, not necessarily to wear, but to have. But it was fascinating to see how things were done and are made, from start to finish, and not with lots of machinery, but the way it was done, whether it's with the loom and the weavers, and so it was very, very very insightful, I think, and educational. And I love things like that. I love Williamsburg. It's the same kind of thing.
Do you know if did the average person wear clogs, or was that just for dancing?
No, they wore them. They
really wore wooden shoes.
Did you try one? Did you try them on?
I've tried wooden shoes on several times in the past. To me they're clunky, but supposedly they're quite, I guess when you get used to them, they're supposedly quite comfortable. And
Scholl would make a bunch of money.
It's like there's like room in them, and people wear them, with socks, and they don't wear them with anything or whatever. But we saw people, the people dressed in traditional costume, and they were all wearing just very simple wooden clogs. And I asked them, I said, how comfortable are they? And they said, yeah, you get used to them, and they're very comfortable. So
wow. Okay. Hey, I would try it.
Dude, if you run out of money and there's some wood around, make a clog, pair of clogs, and go for it.
The other thing, I'm so fascinated about this because of the connection between Holland and the Netherlands, I should say, and South Africa, and in the Cape areas where the Dutch East India Company set up shop in this fort, and
right.
And reading your article, like my school learnings are all coming back to me, and we've actually been to these places where they, the Dutch East India Company, here they come on their ship, and it's the first thing, and the patterns on the porcelain and the ceramics, that blue and white, and how it actually became a style of cloth that people, the blue and the white design was something you'd see on cloth all over the place there.
Yeah, it's world famous. It's that Delft pottery, the Delft porcelain, whatever, is world famous. And if you go to Delft, everybody who goes to Delft, most of the time they want to go see the Royal Delft factory, because it is the only place in the world that is, creating that particular type of porcelain. And it's that very distinctive blue and white wear.
Yeah.
And they show you how it's made and how it's painstakingly, meticulously hand painted by people, and people who are become masters after being in training, or not training, but having painting like for 8 years, and then 10 years they become a master at it. And it was fascinating, and the history of it, and how the whole porcelain thing came from China, and that was coming to the Netherlands, and the Dutch people really loved this porcelain. And then I believe there was like a civil war something happened within China that it stopped those exports. And so the Dutch potters decided that they were going to try and maybe imitate this, Chinese porcelain, but they came up with their own style and their own type of wear, and then, started producing it. And so they didn't need to, get it. They didn't need to import it from other countries or from Asia at the time. And so it just became incredibly popular and became the Royal Delft factory, because the royal family, of course, wanted it, and then had their own specific, sets that were made specifically for the royal family. And it is gorgeous. It really is gorgeous stuff. It's very handsome, very beautifully done. And there's a signature of the painter on it, so for sure there's specific stamps and a signature that for sure that it is the real thing.
you're not buying this at Walmart. Okay, this is not happening.
No,
it is just not happening, people. No, but it's such an interesting history too of the Dutch East India Company to me, and it just always makes me I'm fascinated by it. And in South Africa, when we did our tour out there, and we went to like every park, every museum. No kidding. I mean, we were on the road for 2 years there, and and I was a kid. I was in high school and homeschooling on the road.
Wow.
And it just brought history to life for me. Whereas at one point I was like, and I was into historic novels, but something in the classroom just didn't do it for me.
Right.
And then as soon as we went on the road and I went to all these places, now that actually was one of those things where it really made you want to travel because you understood the cultures. And it was because they were dressing up. It was that living history part where you can imagine and step back in time, and you're actually standing in a place of history that was that way. There's, movies do great jobs, books do great jobs, but there's something about standing in that place, and then people are dressed up in that way and showing you what it was like, what it was like to churn butter back in the day. Yeah. Seriously, now we have all kinds of weird margarine things that even insects won't eat. So, they last for years. But I go and look at something like that, and it's like it really it reminds us.
I think it just brings it alive to people and of all ages. And like you said, you can read about something or you can see a movie, but there's nothing like truly experiencing it or walking around streets that are just centuries old and looking at buildings and architecture and to me understanding how things were done at that time and realizing we take so many things for granted as to how quick we can do things now compared to how long it took to do something back then, and it just gives I think it just gives perspective and it's a way for history really to become alive and become really significant for people. At least it is for me, and I've seen it happen with my children, and when I was a child the same thing happened, just like you were talking about, Lisa. So it really is, and it's so any one of these little towns that you go into, you get that dose of that, and anywhere I think in Europe, there's a lot of history in Europe, but it's you look at the architecture and you're like, wow, that building's very old, and it was the house of this, or it was it was a marketplace for this, or whatever it is, and you try to, as you're walking around, you're picturing and you're imagining life like what it was like back then.
And it's so much harder for them back then, but then you look at some of the buildings, they're so beautiful and ornate, and we just put up square boxes now. We're kind of past that part where we try to make everything really, really beautiful and artistic. And when you think of how hard it was for the people back then to do what they managed to accomplish, you can start to appreciate what your ancestors did.
Right. And in the Netherlands, the architecture is so interesting. It's these very tall, these tall, narrow buildings that are, right next to each other, and with these steep roofs, and I think I mentioned how there's these tiles, and you see the black tiles and the red tiles, and the black tiles are used in the front because they were the ones that were worth more, and so the people wanted anybody who was walking by to see that they were, this person's prosperous, they have black tiles, but then the red tiles are either in the side or in the back somewhere.
Wow.
And so it was, it was kind of an advertisement for, I'm doing pretty well, look at me kind of thing,
This is interesting because is it Leiden that you pronounce it? Leiden? I should know after.
Oh, it's Leiden.
Leiden. Okay, yeah. I after E. Oh, that's right. Go back to that lesson, Lisa. Leiden, and that was the birthplace of Rembrandt. Yeah, it's like our Hollywood historian Steve Schneikert. The I comes after E. Got to remember. But yeah, the birthplace of Rembrandt, and what was interesting, you were talking about the architecture there, but what's also interesting to me is the murals over there are not like your typical mural. This is like poetry. I love it.
It's a huge project there that started I don't know how many years ago, but it was a private foundation that started it. I hear now that the university has taken on and is going to continue and has continued it with adding more to the buildings. I mean, there's well over 100 now, and you look and there's these these poems, and some of them I think are fairly well known. Some of them maybe not as much. They are written in different languages, but I think most of them have some sort of interpretation below, either in Dutch and English, so that people can actually understand what they might be looking at. And you can walk around with a guide and find them, but as I said, I think in my story, it's more fun to come across them naturally, like as you're walking around, you're like, oh my gosh, look at that, you know?
Yeah,
and it's just wonderful, you know. It's a form of quote unquote, it's not really graffiti, but yet it's this very sophisticated way of displaying a thought, a sentiment. Maybe you'll be stimulated by what you read, what you see, or else even just the image of the writing on the wall, you know?
I love that because, you know, I remember in class, you know, they would always go, you take this poem and you're going to write a whole thing about a thesis on this one poem, you know, and then the teacher will go, no, that's not what the poem's about. And I'd go like, well, that's how I'm taking it.
Right.
That's how it's like every musician and author and writer, their whole thing is that you're supposed to take it for your own, even though, get the message or not, but it's okay. That's part of the creative process. And I think you're right about it. I mean, I'm always go you get your little map book or whatever and see it later. But there's something about stumbling onto something like that and looking directly without anybody telling you anything about it and having that moment. It's just like looking at artwork. If someone tells you to go look at this painting, this is what it's about, and this is what it did. You've already started to create an opinion without really taking in the art.
Right.
I think the artist always wants you to come across the piece of art without any knowledge whatsoever and get your take on it for yourself.
Right.
And then you can go learn, and somebody can tell you, well, no, we think it means this, or because they know the history of the artist, it probably meant that. And you can argue that till the cows come home because you really don't know.
But we each interpret everything we see, and we interpret it the way we with whatever we come to it with is the way we interpret it. And art is like that, and it should be that way. And whether or not the artist maybe intended something to be, it still is just open to the interpretation. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, there are artists and musicians who go out of their way to make sure you understand, protest art and protest music. Where
we love them.
Yeah, I know. Where you can say, well, I know what you meant by that, and if you don't get it, you're like, boy, you don't do this.
But what's interesting also in Leiden, which was one of my favorite places to visit, but there's also the whole pilgrim connection there. There's this Leiden American Pilgrim Museum, and then there's the Church of the Pilgrim Fathers there, and it really is a part of history that we that study in the U.S. We just hear, oh, they came from England to Plymouth, blah blah blah. Well, no, they fled England and went to Amsterdam and then moved to Leiden. And they lived in Leiden for a number of years before they eventually emigrated on the big journey to Plymouth. And there's people say, well, we know why they left England. It's the whole religious intolerance situation. And then they went to Holland, and they were able to practice freely there. But from what I understand, I guess the founding fathers or the pilgrims or the parents, they started to see that the outside influences were affecting their children. There was a lot of stuff happening. Holland was on the verge of becoming this economic leader in the world. And so, all of this kind of propelled them to emigrate. And they also wanted to, be able to advance their own gospel or their own religion to other parts of the world. So that was another reason for them to move on, so to speak. But it was a piece of the history that I really don't know if I was aware of, that they had been in Holland for that many years. I didn't even know that.
No, I'm going to go.
That's not normally actually taught.
Yeah, and so now I've got to go to Glenn Burrows, our English historian, because what he does, he comes on show. He traces history back to Norfolk, England, which is where a lot of people moved from. Came out of that port out there to America, and so now we're going to have to go knock on his door because that's his whole thing. Because Americans, Australians, and Canadians, I'll go visit him in Norfolk, England, and he takes them and helps them actually find their ancestry.
Right.
And we'll take them around and everything. But I'm going to have to say, did you know? And he'll go, yes, I know.
He probably did.
with a much nicer accent than mine. But I'm going to have to ask that and then you always think about the Pennsylvania Dutch, right?
Right.
And so it's like, well, how did they get here? What happened? Yeah. And you look at the
They came over on a cigar box.
But what I love about this too is the history of the Pennsylvania Dutch bringing toll painting and some of these crafts over here, which when I look at toll painting, it kind of now goes towards the painting that's done in, on the Dutch East Indian Company on that kind of, that kind of work, that kind of craft. And it's like, this is just absolutely fascinating. I got to dig in now.
That toll painting was really, really popular for a while in the States, and everybody. I mean, I know I did it. You go to a thrift shop and get like a chest of drawers or something, and fix it all up, and then do toll painting. And you can buy patterns.
That was very popular one time. Yeah. Very popular.
Yeah. Well, this is. I want to go. This just really. I want to number one be on the barge because I'm not. Nancy and I are not big crowd people. There's like something about just being nice and chilled.
Yes, and this would be perfect for you, I think. Our barge, there were, 6 suites, junior suites, and so you can have a maximum of 12 people. And there was a crew of 6, and so, wonderful attention, real personal, wonderful attention. The food is something that is unbelievable. We had a French chef named Ollie, and he was amazing, not only as this wonderful, gregarious guy, but he was just this unbelievable master in the kitchen, and he would just whip up these incredible meals, and every meal was such a delight. You really look forward to meals, and they explain to you everything, and then every meal is accompanied by wines and these artisan cheeses, and so you're learning about education about cheeses, and you're learning about wines, and and so it's really more than just sitting down and eating. It's an experience, and I think many people, and there are a lot of repeat clients with European Waterways, and they always mention how wonderful the whole ambiance of the barges, how incredible the food is, how special it is, because it is such a you feel like this is like your own private thing, and they do have, this is a company that offers, scheduled sailings or scheduled cruises for, that are open to the public. And then of course they have charters that people could charter the barge. Like if you had a family reunion, you could charter the barge,
I want my own barge party. Like, how cool is that? But think about it. I mean, see, this is it. People do these big fancy weddings. I'm like, listen, if you're going to get married, just, this is how it should be. Just have something.
You could do a destination wedding.
Yeah, barge weddings. I don't know why I went to wedding mode, but, that's not happening.
But and when you charter it, you have control over it, what you want to do, and all that kind of stuff. And, and when we were talking earlier, it's like people don't understand when I said I was going on, this barge trip. People are like, oh, barge, Nobody has any idea of what this type of barge
I couldn't wait for you to go on the barge, because I was like, you were like, I'm on my way to Holland with clogs and windmills. And I'm like, good, get on that barge. I'm dying to know what the barge trip is like.
I thought you were going to be with cattle.
Yeah, no, but to me, no, because
I could board right after the cattle.
I've always wanted to know what it's like to get on a barge. And to me, if there's wine and cheese on board and you get to float and look, and my whole thing of this too, which is really cool, is I really loved what you said at the beginning and what you talk about in the article. You can have all these experiences. It's going to be different for everybody according to what they want. But the fact that you dock and you can get out and go and just walk or bicycle or tricycle in Nancy's case is absolutely the way with 1 hour walkers. This would be good for 1 hour walk people, right? Like,
it's wonderful that and contrary to other boats that a lot of times they move at night and then, are docked during the day kind of thing. The barges move for a few hours during the day, so you can actually see life as, as it's going by, you can see it. And then, they dock when you still have plenty of time to explore. And then you are there in the evening and you don't, you're not moving, and, you don't move until the next morning sometime. But to me, it was a nice way of saying, I want to be on board when they're moving, because that's when you're seeing.
I want to see that.
And you want to see it as it goes by. We were looking into, it's almost like you're so intimate that you're almost like you're looking into people's, almost into their homes, and their, it's just
cool.
it was so cool, especially all these. It was like, oh my gosh, look at that, or their gardens, or their little, and you're looking and you're saying, oh, it's such to me it was such a very neat and tidy country, and the people are incredibly friendly, and they speak English, so you don't have to worry about learning Dutch, which is, it sounds like a very difficult language to learn. And they're very open-minded, and I think they're forward-thinking.
They are forward-thinking.
Extremely. I think Holland, the Netherlands, they are doing such advancements for the environment.
Right.
And listen, those windmills are not just, eye candy. They're working. Right. They're doing things. And there's I think Europe as a whole is just, that we need to go learn.
Well, they're older than us. And because they're smaller countries, they understand climate change, they understand environmental problems, because it hits them quick and fast. And they're like, okay, we got to think. They're innovative, and it's
very innovative, extremely innovative.
And it's too bad that in our country, some of the, I don't know, powers that be don't actually learn from someone else. We're just on this road of make all the mistakes that everybody else has gone through. So it would be nice.
I think going to countries,
from them.
traveling opens your eyes of different ways of doing things.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact that the barges are small, not necessarily small, but they're these small, intimate experiences.
Yeah.
Because that is a better way for, I was going to say for the land, but you're on water, but it's a better thing for the environment, and it's a better thing for people as well. There's
it's
breathability.
It's interesting. We had, our crew was made up of several different countries. I think there were German and Belgium, and there was somebody from young man from Argentina, and it's and England, and then the guests were also, there were Americans, there were Brits. There was a Canadian, so it was almost like having a mini United Nations, and it's nice because it's a great way for people to interact, I think, and people to you can hear different people's viewpoints, about things, and so to me that is also the beauty of something like that.
I love that. Awesome. Everybody, the website is european-waterways.com. Go there to check this out, because seriously. Santa Claus, I'm just saying, I'm starting now. Christmas comes in July, right? I'm just saying. Knock, knock. I would like to experience this. I think this is one of the coolest things. And I love to float, and I love to walk, and just the architecture and just the history, this rich, rich history that we can all experience, and the cheese. You must go for the cheese.
Don't forget the cheese.
Must not forget the cheese and the flowers. I mean, come on now, and the wine.
Cheese, wine, and flowers.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
That's
art,
right.
Art. The art. I want to go for the art. That's what when you said this, I'm like, oh man, she really had a good time. That is awesome. I'm so happy. I mean, it's like, don't you really just love your job? You're getting to go out and experience these places, and
I must admit, I do. I do like what I do.
I bet. So everyone, again, european-waterways.com, and also Debbie's article, you can see a slideshow of her experience is up on blendradioandtv.com. You can just go to her page in the expert department, or just type in Holland in the search box and you'll find it. Beautiful photos, just exquisite. And again, it's also going to be featured in the July-August issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, because I'm knocking on Father Christmas's door, or Santa Claus, whichever one however you want to call it. I'm just saying. Hint. I'm starting now. But also, so blendradioandtv.com is the place to go. Don't forget, Big Blend Radio airs Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and Fridays and Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check it all out. Just go to bigblendradio.com. And Debbie, we always find music for you. And
Yes.
I didn't have Dutch music. Now I'm like, I have to go get Dutch music now. So, but the closest I got was music from South Africa, just outside Cape Town. So I thought that was pretty good. And
Not
it's from
bad.
a music. Yeah, I thought it's called Wheel of Destiny. So the video does have a windmill, but it's not a water windmill. It's a I was going to say on the Ploss. I've gone off the cause now. On the farm windmill. Ploss is the farm, but
Yes.
it's from James Saunders, an incredible guitarist and musician. Just amazing. Just Mark Knopfler and him, and I'd like to see the two of them play
nice.
together.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So this is his latest single. It's called Wheel of Destiny. You can go to jamessaundersmusician.com and keep up with him. He's out near Hermanus, which is outside of Cape Town. And so I just feel like there's a connection. Of course there is.
Wonderful.
So there it is.
Wonderful.
So enjoy. Thanks so much. And Debbie, before you go, Fire Monkey. I'm not going to not say Fire Monkey. The nickname is sticking. Where's your next destination for everyone to know?
I am heading to Ireland and then Iceland.
There's a lot of pubs.
Very
in
good.
Ireland.
Very good, because we have Irish music and I have Iceland music,
Wonderful.
believe it or not.
Oh,
How about that?
wonderful. I love it.
Yes. Who would know? But I do. Oh, no, wait, it's green. Okay, maybe not. It's close enough.
But you have Irish.
Yeah, I got Irish. Yep.
Cool.
All right.
Very cool.
Well, have fun. Have fun out there.
Thank
and
you.
have a Guinness for us, okay?
Will do. Thanks a lot. Take care, ladies.
Thank you. Everybody, here it is. Wheel of Destiny.
You're sinking sweet and slow beneath the horizon. I see you disappearing in the haze. You're sliding in and out of this dream, just a fleeting glimpse, never the same, never the same.
The story seldom has more than one part, just a long and winding road back to the start, like a curtain call that brings me to the fore. Just one look before I fade away, fade away. 3, 2, 1.
What shooting stars may fall for these wishes heaped upon that shore. Beneath the sea of memories, I'll find you setting free my wheel of destiny. My wheel of destiny. Of destiny. Fading, fading, fading to the night. You're fading, 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 fading to the light. You're fading, fading to the night. You're fading, fading to the light. Into the light.